joining us for another video installment. If you're joining us for the first time, my name is Genghis Shakhan. I'm the managing attorney here at Shakhan and Wilkerson Law Firm. We are a boutique law firm and we are small on purpose. Myself, as well as attorney Chelsea Wilkerson, we are at the helm and we serve our clients in the areas of divorce, child custody, family law, as well as criminal defense and personal injury. So if we can help you in any of those areas, you are always welcome to schedule some time with us. If you're looking to retain legal counsel, you can do so by hitting the link in our bio above or giving us a call at 404-999-9529 or 478-845-1213. All right, let's do a quick disclaimer. I told you my name, Genghis Shakhan. This video is meant for educational purposes only, entertainment purposes only. Does not establish an attorney-client relationship by watching this video between yourself and the law firm of Shakhan and Wilkerson Law, or between me and yourself. In addition to that, this is not intended to be a legal consultation, nor should you rely on any of the information that you might be privileged to receive here in this video, okay? As always, you should consult with an attorney. Your facts are going to be probably vastly different given your case, and the attorney needs to go over that with you, and that would happen in a legal consultation, okay? And then, of course, if an attorney can assist you, then you are welcome to always retain an attorney, and our office is always available to those that are seeking legal counsel. Okay. All right. That being said, we have another great video for you today. Today we are discussing some of the biggest divorce mistakes made by men here in the state of Georgia. And so we want to talk to you about this is for the guys, how you're going to protect your rights and how you're going to protect your financial future, okay, by not making these mistakes. And these are the mistakes that we see, and they're going to be numbered, and I don't know that they fall in any particular order, but I will let you know what I believe is the number one issue that many guys experience that are going through a divorce, okay? All right, so let's go ahead and do a dive right into divorce. This is a pretty big topic here in the state of Georgia. It's one that we dedicated a lot of time and attention to. Of course, if you have an opportunity to go to our website, we have a couple of books where they are available for sale on Amazon, or you can purchase them directly from our website that talk about divorce and to talk about, really all the machinery when it comes to what happens in the courts, what you can really expect, how to prepare, and essentially what an outcome might look like given any set of facts. And so highly recommend you pick up that book. It's going to really give you a baseline of information. It's going to provide you some lexicon so that you can talk intelligently to any attorney that you might be vetting to assist you with your legal matter or your divorce, okay? So highly recommend that to you. It's pretty cheap. I think it's around 20 something bucks. And so it's a very, very good read. And it's something that, again, we've dedicated our resources and time to because we felt like it's something that the general public might really benefit from. All right. So divorce is really stressful for men and women, but we know it's stressful for men. A lot of times men's situations don't get discussed in mass media. And so, a lot of times there are very few experts that really dedicate, their platform or, really their time to addressing men's issues. So we did want to take an opportunity to do that here, okay? And so, unfortunately, men, can be emotional, just like women can be emotional. And many times these emotional decisions, they may differ, okay? But they can have adverse impacts on the outcome of your divorce, particularly financial impact, but also impact regarding your rights as a parent. So today we're discussing some of the biggest mistakes that we see Georgia men make when it comes to divorce and how to avoid them. The number one mistake that I see is just waiting too late to hire an attorney. I wish I could tell you how many calls we get the day after the final divorce decree is issued, and then our guys are talking about an appeal. They have allowed another attorney, opposing counsel, to pummel them for 10 months, 11 months straight in court. They've gone through mediation pro se. They've gone through the discovery process pro se. They've gone through the temporary hearings pro se. And, they have a final, and, they got killed in the final hearing. And, the outcome is everything that they see in their nightmares. And we could have mitigated a lot of it, perhaps. And facts are different, but there are just things that should have absolutely been addressed that were not addressed. Because let's be honest, if you're not a legal expert, and if you have a lot of assets and you don't truly understand equitable division or Georgia law, it's just folly to do it yourself when there is a family law attorney on the other side that does understand these things, right? And many times, you don't understand how much damage you did until you get that final divorce decree and it starts to sink in, okay? And we get a bunch of calls, right? Right after a final divorce. And it is like, can this be appealed? And it's like you would have spent less money being represented by counsel. And this is where you have to do a cost benefit analysis. And ladies, I have to applaud you. Y'all are great at doing a cost benefit analysis at the outset and at the start of divorce proceedings. Just I guess for guys, because so many of us are DIYers, do it yourself. It's like, oh, I can, figure this thing out, and you get into it and you flub it up, right? And you have a terrible result. But if you had retained counsel from the outset, a lot of that damage might have been mitigated. But a lot of times where men are very prideful, and many of us feel like it's something that we can do ourselves. Okay. And so that is the number one issue that we see with guys. They just wait way too long to hire an attorney. Meanwhile, their soon to be ex, their wife, hiring an attorney 2 or 3 months, before the opposing side might have been served. And, the wife might have been planning this divorce a year out, right? So she might already have all the assets. She is ready to move forward. She's retained counsel. And, a lot of our men, if they retain counsel, they haven't even thought about, what attorney, they haven't started vetting attorneys. They haven't called around. They haven't done any of that stuff. And so that is the number one issue. And I want to take some time with that issue because it is a big issue. It is the number one issue that I see in court. And I'm going to be honest with you, as a litigator, I'm always, especially when we're, hired by a wife, we are always champing at the bit when we see across the aisle, a soon-to-be ex-husband who is pro se. He's representing himself, and he has all of these assets, all of this, high stakes stuff, and he just does not understand Georgia law. And it's like, my friend, why would you come to court? It's just like going into battle with no armor. You're going into battle, with no sword, no shield. Right. So I don't know what you expect the outcome to be, but many attorneys, they love to see pro se litigants. They love to see it, right? Because you already know what kind of time it's going to be. Okay. So it's just something that's number one, is something that you need to think about. And I'm gonna continue to say, if you have a lot of assets, if there are children, if there's custody, and visitation on the line, if there's child support on the line, if there's alimony on the line, attorney's fees on the line, that's high stakes stuff, man. You need to have representation. You need to have some counsel. So that is number one. I've spent a lot of time on it because it's really important, guys. Seek counsel, especially if you have the resources. Now, this is what sometimes gets my goat. The guys will have the resources. They're trying to save. They're pinching the pennies, right? And you end up spending more if you get a bad verdict. You could be spending hundreds of thousands of dollars over the life of your case. If your child support numbers are inaccurate, if you're the non-custodial parent, you could be spending tens of thousands of dollars per year extra, right? If you get hit with things like alimony, crazy alimony numbers, or stuff is not divided appropriately in equitable division, you again, now you're starting to talk about hundreds of thousands of dollars. I've seen millions of dollars that are on the line, and you don't want to pay this attorney a few $1,000s, when in the balance is your retirement. Your whole retirement is in the balance. All your investment properties are in the balance. So you don't want to pay someone a few thousand to protect $1 million. You just didn't do a good cost benefit analysis. And you're going to, you're potentially exposing yourself and exposing your estate, and your interest as a parent unnecessarily, all right? Just because, you want to try to do it yourself. So something to think about for our guys. That's number one. I had to spend a lot of time on that because, the calls that come after that final divorce decree from those pro se male litigants. I wish you could sit on the phone and hear what I have to hear and endure. And I have to be the bad guy and tell them, hey, man, I wish you had called us 10 months ago. I could have helped you. All right. So that's number one. That will forever be number one. And number two is going to just be moving out without a plan. Okay. That's number two. So, some of our guys will just up and leave the marital residence. They won't really have a plan. And there needs to be a discussion, probably with your attorney, definitely with your attorney about, if moving makes sense for you, and when it might be appropriate, when it might not be appropriate. Considerations involving the kids and their family, finances, as well as safety. Okay. And then, you're protecting the remaining interest in the home if you have any interest. Okay. Those are things that need to be discussed with your counsel. So that's going to be number two, though. Is guys just kind of up and they pack a suitcase and they're gone. All right, and they haven't had a conversation with their counsel. So that needs to happen first. Number three is just letting emotions control your decisions. Okay, and so sometimes we lose clients over this. Okay, guys are just many times overrun with emotions, and they allow their emotions to really cloud their judgment. You've probably paid tens of thousands of dollars to hire an attorney. Don't hire an attorney and not listen to him or her. Okay, you paid for their expertise. Okay, so hopefully they're good. Hopefully because you did retain them, right? So hopefully you've vetted them and you did some research and you trust their counsel. That's important. If you don't trust their counsel, I'm not sure why you hired them. But you want to run things by your counsel, and then you want to, of course, listen to what they have to say about your case, okay, and follow their legal counsel. So if you're in their advice, if you're going to disregard their advice, then that was a waste of your money, okay. And so sometimes guys we'll tell them, hey man, slow down on the communication with your opposing side, because a lot of those angry texts, they become exhibits, okay, and they hurt your case because they appear in court before the judge. So we need to stop, and take a pause and time out on the communication and the text. And sometimes folks won't listen to us. Same with the social media posts or making threats. Okay, so some of our guys will make threats. Next thing you know, they're being served with temporary protective order papers, right? And at the center of it is a threat that was made, and that's being alleged that our guy is now threatening his soon-to-be ex-spouse, and that's going to harm his overall interest in his marriage case, in his divorce case, I should say. And so, that's something you want to be mindful of. Destroying property is another, right? So these arguments, and this might be sometimes when it is best to leave the home. If you guys are arguing like cats and dogs, there's physical altercations. That's when it's you do want to think very very strongly about getting out of there. And then of course just refusing to communicate with their counsel, okay, about what's going on. Okay, so you want to make sure that you're letting your attorney know what's happening so that we can advise you on your next best steps. Okay, so that's number three, the third mistake that we see from our guys. Number four is just going to be ignoring financial records. Okay, so bank statements, retirement statements, credit card statements, all that good stuff, tax returns, pay stubs, mortgage information, investment accounts. We can, subpoena those documents. We ask for those documents. A lot of times, we're entitled to those documents. So some guys will say, hey, I'm just not handing them over. Okay. Of course, then you run the risk of being called into the court in front of the judge. And the judge, you're being compelled to turn them over by the judge. Okay. And if, the other side might be entitled to attorney's fees. There might be, some sanctions that come with that. And if, the court looks at, your conduct as being done in bad faith, it can ultimately, harm your case. And we do see guys, make terrible decisions regarding turning over, documents, whether they do so in a timely manner or they're not, turning over complete documents. And they put themselves in situations where, it just makes things more contentious. Things become overly litigious. And then, which doesn't have to be, the cost balloons. And, you could be called to stand before the man and essentially, answer for your actions. So that's mistake number four that we see. You want to avoid that. Mistake number five is going to be a good old fashioned of hiding of assets. So kind of, what you see in kindergarten, the guy, he wants to keep all of his toys and he does not want to disclose where they are for fear that they're going to be lost in equitable division. And, they may be. Okay. And so hiding money and, really not participating in discovery like you should is always going to be a bad idea usually. Okay. Number six is just going to be dating too soon. We see this a lot in our our legitimation cases. One of the reasons why some of the guys end up in legitimation is because they moved on to a different romantic partner, and they kind of decided that they are going to be Instagram official, and maybe post their new lady friend on Instagram, or social media, TikTok, whatever. And all of a sudden, now they're having difficulty picking up their child. Now the other side is engaging in parental alienation, and something that you kind of did to yourself. You do this, but this in a divorce context. This can essentially make the case more litigious, and then of course you run the risk of essentially having more records be subpoenaed, and really allegations be made that you are depleting the marital estate, pursuing your romantic interest, and those can be legitimate concerns. Okay, and you could that third party might be called into court to testify. Okay, and so this might be something that you don't want your private life exposed, or your personal life exposed. And so it's something that you do want to think about dating too early, increasing the conflict, increasing the discovery, and then, just essentially it can be a bar to alimony. So something that you don't want to do, guys. Mistake number seven is using the children as leverage. We don't see a lot of this from guys. It can happen where, some guys might speak negatively about the opposing parent to children, asking a child to choose sides, using visitation to punish the other parent. This is something that we see generally from women more than we do from the guys that we represent. But it does impact best interest of the child standard. So it's something that you do want to make sure that you are involved in avoiding. Mistake number 8 is just going to be, failing to stay involved with their children. Okay. So, that's a big one. We do see that sometimes in legitimation cases where, a dad just has failed to keep contact with the child, or, in a divorce case where a father is not attending school events or medical, appointments or sporting events, parent teacher conferences, that can have an adverse effect on what that parenting plan might look like. Because if you're not really as engaged as you should be, it's going to be hard to make, really an argument that you should be the custodial parent. Okay, if that's what you are seeking, some dads are, or some dads are just, they're looking to have more parenting time. Remember, with some of the new laws now, the parenting time impacts the child support obligation. Okay, so if you are receiving diminished parenting time, you might be paying more in child support. So you do want to think about that, or vice versa, right? If you have more parenting time, you may be paying less in child support. All right. Mistake number 9 is just oversharing on social media. We talked a little bit about that. Your vacations, some of your purchases. So, I've had clients that's like, hey, I'm going to buy a Ferrari. I'm going to go ahead and we're going to vacation in Italy. Me and my new girlfriend. All right. And so it infuriates the other side. It might intensify the fighting. It's going to cause arguments. And so cost benefit analysis, it's not something that helps your case. Ultimately, if it's not helping, it's probably harming your case. And then mistake number 10 that we see from guys is just fighting over everything. Okay. Some things are just, they're not worth fighting over. Right. So, attorney's fees are worth obviously litigating over because you're talking about tens of thousands of dollars. But, there's an emotional cost that comes with fighting over everything. And there's a legal cost that comes with it, right? So if an attorney is just, over every issue, you guys are essentially litigating, you're talking about, again, increasing the cost of that litigation, which ultimately you are going to be the bearer of, okay? And so it also can impact children. It can impact the length of your trial, whether or not a trial is even going to be necessary, okay? Number 11 is going to be ignoring some of those temporary orders that are issued by the court, temporary custody orders, temporary child support orders, alimony, temporary possession of the home, of those types of things. Sometimes our guys are just not paying attention to those orders. And then, of course, we see it sometimes, for example, in a protective order, right? It comes out and, before it, becomes an, aggravated stalking charge. Or it just basically, let's just say a temporary child support order. Okay. Ultimately, you can be found in contempt. It can harm your case, especially if it's the same judge that's going to be, listening to the final. If you are not following the judge's orders, the judge is not a robot. Leaves a bad taste in the judge's mouth. They may take it out on you in that final. Okay. Number 12 is believing that divorce is only about winning. Be honest with you, there are no real winners and losers in family law. That's my take. So we generally would like for our clients to think long term. And so what kind of father do you want to be after the divorce? What kind of financial position do you want to be in after your divorce 5 years from now? And, how can your decisions today affect your future self as well as your relationship with your children? Okay. All right. So let's just really quickly, let's pause and let's talk about some practical advice for our guys. Before making any major decisions, you do want to speak with your attorney always. You want to try to stay calm when you're talking with your lawyer, your counsel. And then you want to, of course, stay employed if you can. That's always important. Document important events. Protect your finances, focus on your children, and then try your best to think long term. All right. And so that is going to be our advice to you as a final thought. You do want to try to be organized, prepared, patient, and you want to make sure that your word means something, so that your testimony can be as credible as possible. Okay, so you going through your divorce, you're not going to make any of these mistakes. You're going to make sure that, remember, the one thing you can do is address number one. That's very, very important. Don't wait too long to get counsel if you are going through a divorce. It's just going to compound your other mistakes that you make. Okay, it's going to, essentially expose really all of your assets, all of your investments. It's going to impact, what your child support obligation might look like, as well as, your parenting rights are going to look like in a parenting plan. So just don't make the mistake of waiting too long. If you know you need a lawyer, get a lawyer. Don't wait till your case is halfway over and then, really start talking about, well, hey, I've done some of the, legwork, pro se. So it's because I've done some of the sweat equity. If you're looking for a bargain attorney, I would say you have to understand that there's a difference between a bargain and a difference between quality. Okay, and the difference. Okay, it's the difference between shopping at a store that rolls the prices back, and a store that really has high quality merchandise. Okay, and so if you're looking for a high quality attorney, given what's going on with your case, then of course we are the best fit for you, probably. And we would have to have a consultation to see if we can establish that. But if you're looking for, really a cheap law firm that cuts corners, that's not us. We don't do that. We take care of our clients. We make ourselves available and accessible to our clients. We take a lot of pride in our work, and we know the value of our work product. So we are not Walmart. Okay, so if you're looking for Walmart, there are some Walmart law firms out there. That is not our testimony. Okay, but that being said, you do want to find counsel, and of course, you want something that's going to fit your budget. Okay, if we can help you out, you're always welcome to give us a call. We do a lot of divorces. Men's rights is really important to us. Not every law firm really addresses men's rights. However, you can give us a call at 404-999-9529 or 478-845-1213, or you can tap the link up there in our bio, and we will set up a consultation. We'll chat with you, see if we can assist you. If we can, we'll give you directions for next steps, and then we generally get into your case rather quickly, get everything drafted, filed, and we'll get the ball on the roll for you. Okay. All right. Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Hopefully, if we can assist you, we are here for you, and you'll give us a call.